Hello, this is the Unretired Engineer coming at you again to talk about engineering projects and lots of things related to that. Today I'm going to be talking about the SBIR, the Small Business Innovative Research Grant Program. And it's a program that I worked from both the government side and then later as a project engineer working on grants and putting in proposals. So I've written them on both sides. And I've also evaluated them from the other side. And so, there are a lot of things that, the basic directions don't really tell you. So SBIR was mandated back in 1982. For small businesses who do R&D because of their greater innovation and effectiveness. And it's been an interesting program developing some innovative technologies and making some good breakthroughs. And it's a program I worked on from very early on. It came into existence when I actually joined the government as a civilian engineer. So very much something I worked on for about the first 20 years of my career. So the thesis here is that you have to think about the fact that what you write and what is reviewed are not necessarily the same thing. They may be the same words, but they're not really read in the order or in the way that you may think. So that's something you really need to think about. So there are a lot of things that will get you kicked out from the other side. And one of the principal ones is formatting. So you might think that that's pretty mundane, but the reality is that there are required fonts and spacings and margins and paste counts and how the document's organized. And you're essentially never going to get through anything. You're never going to get read if you don't meet all of those requirements. And essentially, the standard is something on the order of 10% of all proposals submitted are never read because they just don't make it through that first. So make sure that you do follow what they tell you, because it does matter. There is very much a gate you pass right there. So yeah, the way that it is organized is that there's a single page synopsis that is kind of your cover page. There is then 20 pages of technical. There is a fairly structured financial document that is a separate document. And then there's a commercialization plan, which again is a separate plan. They are not necessarily all read by the same person. In fact, the financial part is often not read by the same people, not graded by the same people, though you will, as an evaluator, you'll often glance at it just to make sure that it kind of makes sense. Because in many cases, what happens is the financial evaluator will read the first page and the financial piece just to make sure that all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed, and doesn't read any of the rest because they're not technical. The commercialization piece is often read by both the financial and the technical, or just by the technical, again, to make sure that it hangs together. When I did a review, I started with the technical narrative. I actually usually started looking at the commercialization plan. Because the reality is, it's one of the most important pieces. Is if you don't have a coherent commercialization plan, then you're not going to really pass the gate. So I'd read the first page, I'd read the commercialization plan, and then I would look at the technical. But again, I often didn't look at the technical. I'd already kind of got a snapshot of that on the first page. What I did go look at is who was going to be, what is the staff, who's the principal investigator, who are technical staff who are going to be doing the work, is the resources in the company as far as how they're going to accomplish a program. Does it have all of what's required there? And then I'll go back and read the technical. And sometimes I would read a bit of the technical and the introduction piece at the first, then go back and look at the back end. But it's not read in the way you think it is front to back. So you don't read the first page and then the technical and all the rest of it. So think about that and make sure that you allow somebody who is not necessarily the deep expert in your area understand the gist of what you're doing very, very quickly in the synopsis and in the first pages of your technical piece. And then do pay attention to the back end, because that will often really bias the evaluator against, when they look at the technical. They may not even get to the technical if they say, well, there's no way the resources here are sufficient to do the job. So one of the things that you need to do is when you are writing your technical matter is that you need to put a hook in that somebody who is a technical subject matter expert will get what you said and almost skip the first pieces until you start getting into the depth. But somebody who is not a technical matter expert can get a pretty good idea of why what you're proposing makes sense, and introduce the subject and then get steadily deeper in your technical matter as you get to the back of the technical section. Diving straight in at the front with deep technical stuff is just essentially is a way of getting people confused or just saying, well, I'm just being baffled by bullshit. And kind of getting you not well read. It's not a universal thing, but you have to remember you don't know who is going to be reviewing, and you don't know how deep their information is. So just don't assume that it's deep technical experts, but also do not assume that it's a generalist. A lot of government engineers are very competent and pretty well grounded, and will be giving you a pretty stringent read through at the end of the day. So the other thing you have to remember is one of the key pieces is that it's always resource. There's not infinite resources within the government, but we sometimes think it looks like it. There's really something on the order of 20, 30 minutes, right, that they're going to read and do a lot of this work. So don't assume that that they'll take forever to read the document. It has to be relatively easy to read and easy to understand. But again, you have to kind of think about a set of evaluators and make sure that you have structured your technical piece to meet all of their needs, not just one. On the commercialization, of as much as you can, avoid being vague market claims, just hand waving. Put down customers, put down projects, put down technical items where and it is not necessarily a long section, but you have to show how you are going to address it. If you have a partner you're already beginning to talk with, who's helped you define the problem and maybe begin the solution, that's a great connection. If you're in a market already and have some deep insight into it, that is a great thing to show. I do understand it's very, very hard in some cases to come up with a great commercialization story but also don't think you have to go into infinite depth. You just have to present a coherent and reasoned project and a few pieces of data really that indicate that you have a realistic chance of making that break, of finding a partner, of finding an investor, or finding a project that is going to take your technology and move it forward. Again, another item is that if you've done some commercialization in the past, that's a really good key indicator, even if it's not directly related to this project. If you said, well, I've done this before, this was it, in a way that is very believable, again, that's a very strong plus. So don't treat commercialization as an also ran. It is pretty critical. As I said, it was often something I looked at almost from the beginning, because if I didn't believe that the company had a strong chance of being able to commercialize what we were paying for, the rest of it didn't matter a lot. I would not score them down, but I certainly wouldn't give them the benefit of the doubt. One of the things that they often warn you against is incrementalism, right? And this is particularly a thing when a company is perceived to be an SBIR mill that has done multiple SBIRs, which I feel is much more of a perception than a real problem. But it is a thing, and incrementalism can be seen as a negative. The way I always saw it was that something was relatively incremental, but was still a strong advance that was worth the value add was kind of worth how much was going to be paid, and there was a strong commercial path after the project was complete. That would make it a very strong proposal in my mind. Being strictly incremental, that's a problem. It's not really what the SBIR project's about. But being somewhat incremental, but having a strong commercial, I think, was a pretty good proposal. So it's kind of two ways. It's a fine balance, but it's one that you need to pay attention to. So the other is you have to remember that you are being evaluated today by humans, not machines. That's probably going to change to some degree in the not too distant future. But my view is the reality is large language model based AIs are in many ways quite human in the way that they do things, and so tone and other things. So positivity, basically a little bit of making sure that you connected your various threads together in a coherent manner are always very good things, because it's often those beats that make a strong proposal. But remember, right, the individual reviewers have on the order of 15 to 20 minutes to do their review, and they're going to be reviewing against a rubric. They will be given a sheet of items that they basically, did you do this? Did the proposal do this, that, the other? And so friction in your proposal is going to be an issue. And if they have to pick things out, if they have to do a calculation, if they have, anything that causes a hiccup is going to be a negative thing. So just remember that, again, I will go back, not all reviewers are at the same technical level. Many of them will be relatively high technical, but not in your expertise. You may not get anybody who is in your expertise zone. So, be careful about that. So, it's very much a matter of you have to give the reviewer a way to defend their choice of giving you a very high rating. And you have to do that in a very short period of time. And, it is a hard balance, but it's one you have to think about in the writing process. You can't control the human layer. That's one of the things. So it's always, you have to be thinking in very broad strokes. So make sure, that you are writing very clearly. You are basically creating a story that they can remember. Basically build your thesis from relatively simple basics to your complexity. Make sure you have a strong commercialization plan, though, however simple it is. And once you get once you get over those, and you are competing to a large degree on merit, so hopefully once you've gotten those things done, it's all good. So that's my kind of input for this week on the Small Business Innovative Research Grant process. Hopefully something of this has touched something in you to say, oh, maybe that would help me in the future. Hope it does. So this is the Unretired Engineer. Hit the like and the subscribe button if you like this, and I'll be back with you in a week. Cheers.